What we find at Ausperity Private Wealth is that estate planning and creating a simple will or creating your own estate plan is the single most procrastinated financial planning item. So we're bringing it to you in the start of the new year as hopefully a reminder that if you have an estate plan, dust it off, review it, look to see if there's any edits, check on your beneficiaries. And if you do not have an estate plan or a will, this is the call to action from us.
As I just mentioned, we're going to go through a few of the key questions that we get a lot of the time on estate planning. So who needs an estate plan? What should my plan include? When should I create and update the plan? How do I do it and why? It's going to be pretty comprehensive, but again, feel free to submit any questions throughout the presentation through the Q&A. So who needs an estate plan? I think we've answered that question a few times now. Pretty much everyone, even if you think that you don't have anything to plan for, creating an estate plan, which would be like your wills, powers of attorney, potentially a trust. It allows you to dictate, who's going to receive your assets and when you pass away, what they'll receive, when they'll receive it. This especially comes into play if you have minor children. You don't want to give a 10-year-old $1 million, and then how they'll receive it, whether it's liquid assets, maybe it's property, other things like that. If you do not have an estate plan, one of the biggest things that I think we see in our industry is people want to keep things private. There's always the millionaire next door. We talk about that a lot in our meetings, and it's like most of our clients don't realize just how wealthy they are. I know Rory's favorite line is, you might not walk around thinking that you're a millionaire, but you are, and you deserve to have that privacy. So if you don't create your estate plan and your estate goes through probate, which is when the court kind of decides where things are going to fall, you do risk losing that privacy. I think a great example is, Prince. Everyone knows Prince, the color purple.
Yeah.
When he died, he didn't have an estate plan. So everything is public information, which can lead to more family drama, people knowing things that you probably wouldn't want them to know. And then you're also losing the opportunity to save taxes and make sure that your wishes are followed, especially, again, if you have minor children. Do you really want a judge choosing who should be the guardian of them? God forbid something were to happen to their parents? I don't think so.
And those are all great points. And I'll just kind of follow up on that last point there, that, you're working so hard to create this wealth, and, family is what many of you care the most about. You want to have the control. You want the control of making the decision for who receives these assets that you've worked so hard for, or maybe even taking a step further and determining how they have access or how they receive those assets. Again, everyone should have an estate plan. The level and the complexity is going to be specific to you and your family, but if you don't have one, I think the argument can be made that everybody that is working and creating wealth should have an estate plan. And put the control back in your hands. Don't leave it up to the state in a default.
Perfect. So a few of the common estate planning goals that we see are, preserving and enhancing your wealth, achieving more tax efficiency. We'll go through the federal tax limits. We've worked through gifting strategies with a lot of you. So that's a big one. Enhancing creditor protection. So that's, if you were to pass away, you don't want, if your kids are having creditors chasing them, you want to protect the funds that you're leaving to them or the assets. And then charitable giving is another big one. So ultimately, your estate kind of goes into 3 buckets. You're going to pay the government taxes most of the time, either way. You're going to probably give some funds to charity. And the biggest one, as Rory mentioned, is giving the estate to your family and making sure that everyone who you care about receives what you'd like them to.
I would just say here, your assets are kind of in the middle. And I would also say that you're in control to a degree by creating an estate plan. Certainly the goal would be to reduce that top circle, the government or taxes, both from a control standpoint, but also from a tax standpoint. You don't want them receiving an excess amount of funds that could have been prevented with great proper planning. Now, creating an estate plan and creating a trust is not just this magic wand that allows you to escape taxes. A lot of that depends on what state you live in, who is inheriting your assets. We're going to get into a little bit more of that, but I think you want to have that control. These circles hopefully should not be in equal parts, and hopefully planning can help tilt the scales in favor of family. And if you're so inclined, you determine that charity component. Hopefully we're trying to minimize the taxes of the government portion.